If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Central Valley Talk. My name is Ray Johns. I'm your host, and the name of my show is Voices Not Yet Heard. And like we say, we hope that perhaps today your voice will get heard. Now, if you're watching me now, it's live. You can call in. The number will appear on the screen. If you watch me later, it'll probably be a rebroadcast. I'd like to talk about that poor, unfortunate young man who came home from North Korea, Otto Warmbier. We're going to look at a video right now. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about something that disturbs me a great deal, and I'll just come out and say it, and it's racism. You know, it's plain, blatant racism, and we're going to talk about that. So we're going to go to this video. I want you to see this video. We're going to come back. I'm going to talk for a second. And by the way, Gary Miguel is back with us today, and he always has something great to say. So we're going to, right now, we'll go to the video, and we'll be back in a second.
Pyongyang finally breaking its silence by the death of 22-year-old Otto Warmbier, and it's pretty much as one would expect from the regime. Frankly, pretty pathetic. Remember, the 22-year-old American college student was held for 18 months in captivity in North Korea. He was released last week in a coma with brain damage, buried yesterday. Today, a regime spokesman is quoted as saying the belief that he was abused during that captivity, well, that is, quote, groundless, that the government in fact acted in a humanitarian fashion, that the negative accounts of his captivity amounted to a smear campaign against the regime of Kim Jong-un, and that Warmbier was actually the victim of failed policies of the President Obama administration. Sandra, former President Obama's spokesman this week saying that their top effort was to try to release all the Americans held in captivity during that time.
And Greg, we're also learning that North Korea has test-fired these missile engines. What else do we know about that?
Yeah, a lot of activity, Sandra, on both sides of the DMZ actually this week. According to Fox News, there was a test firing this week of a missile which could be used in an ICBM by Pyongyang, which could be tipped with a nuclear warhead, which could reach continental United States in the next couple of years. South Korea today responding in kind, test firing a medium-range missile which would be capable of hitting targets in North Korea as well. So again, activity on both sides of the peninsula. Next week, we'll see activity in Washington, Sandra, a meeting with President Trump at the White House, the new president of South Korea, and they no doubt will be discussing ways to get out of an increasingly tense situation there and around the world.
Okay, I wanted you to see that because there's a reporter, and her name is Lasha or something or whatever, from I think the Huffington Post, who made a statement that I absolutely deplore. And so I wrote this on the way over here. So bear with me. By the way, I'm sorry I have to wear these glasses again. I'm going to take them off just to read this, but as you know, I had eye surgery a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to read this. I wrote this on the way over here. There is no word in which a 15-year sentence in a North Korean gulag represents some sort of meaningful reparations for racism and white privilege. The reason I wrote that is because of what she said, and she happens to be a black reporter. Okay, here's what she said. Bear with me. I'm sorry I have to read this. Living 15 years performing manual labor in North Korea is unimaginable, but so is going to a place I know I'm unwelcome and violating their laws. I'm a black woman. Oh, how did we get to that? The hopeless fear Warmbier is now experiencing is my daily reality, living in a country where white men like him are willfully oblivious to my suffering, even as they are complicit in maintaining the power structures which ensure their supremacy at my expense. He is now an outsider at the mercy of a government unfazed by his cries for help. I get it. So do I, okay? I get it too. You're a racist, okay? How in the world can you compare the plight of African Americans with what that young man went through? And it's people like you who keep all this crap going, and I am sick and tired of it, really sick and tired of it. Why don't you go live in a third world country for about 6 months and see how fast you come back to America? This is the greatest country in the world, and if you don't appreciate it, then get the hell out. That being said, I'm going to bring on my good buddy, Gary Miguel.
How you doing there, man?
I'm doing a little bit better. I got a little bit riled up.
I understand why anybody would.
Yeah, isn't that ridiculous?
It doesn't have to be who you are. I mean, it's ridiculous, and that is part of the problem.
Yes, it is.
Because more and more of that ridiculum is allowed to exist.
Exactly.
In the form of free speech or ignorance, I call it, or naiveness, and then and there's not enough blowback on that.
You know,
kind of thing.
Gary, somebody asked me once, not too long ago, and it was a person that I didn't like, and they said, "What do you do?" And I know this sounds arrogant, and I said, "I win. That's what I do. I'm a winner. I win." Like Donald Trump, he's a winner. Exactly. He wins. I remember when they came out with affirmative action and busing and all that stuff, and I hated it. Right. My mother hated it because it meant that, I'm not good as this guy.
Yeah,
I gotta,
right.
You're going to give me this job because I happen to be black. That's bullcrap.
You got to give.
Or as my dad used to say as an old farmer, it's horsepucky, and that's what it is. It is horsepucky. Right. We need to get on with what the founding fathers intended. We need to embrace our diversities in this country, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we need to do, and quit all this back and forth about racism, about how I'm denied this, and I haven't been denied anything, Gary.
Yeah.
I went to school. I got an education. I have two good businesses here in America, thanks to this country. I love this country.
Well, I think the answer to that is exactly what you are doing right now, and there are others like you all over that are doing exactly what you are doing right now. Now, there's no law.
It affects me emotionally, man. It really does.
I mean, the point is, are you the only one? Of course not.
No.
Are you the only color that's insulted?
No.
Of course not. I mean, it affects any common sense. There we get to that again, and decent human being.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what color you are.
No,
I don't care what religion you are.
That's right. That doesn't
It doesn't
matter.
matter. It doesn't matter where you went to school, where you didn't, and all the rest.
It's when you take advantage of the fact of the social media. Now, here's a woman who's a journalist, and she's taking advantage of her position to spread her personal racism. I'm tired of that.
Well,
she's also there's people out there that believe what she says.
But she's also taking advantage of the American Patriot, who is a decent, country-loving individual, freedom-loving, and
absolutely,
and equality for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, she's taking advantage of all that.
Yeah.
And basically, what she's doing is smearing your face in it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
My face, your face, anybody's face.
Everyone.
Yeah. So people like that, though.
How could you possibly, Gary, compare what that young man went through for 18 months to what a black person is happening in this country? Well, look at me.
Yeah.
When I get ready to shave and come on this point, I look pretty black, and I think when I get up in the morning to brush my teeth, I'm going to be just as black as I am right now.
Well, that isn't the point anyway.
And hey, I
That's a point with her, but it's not the point with you and me.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
She's making it a point because there's something wrong with her.
Absolutely.
And she's ashamed of something. She feels inferior.
Yeah.
She feels something.
Yeah.
But she certainly don't feel like you and I do.
When I read that, because you've given me all these great places to go to, and when I read that, man, it brought a tear to my eye. I thought, oh my goodness, here's a woman in a position to do some good, and she does nothing, except perpetuate all this crap that keeps continuing.
Well, she's not alone, and it's not just black people, black journalists.
I know.
It's everybody that's in that side of the of the pod.
Gary refers to them as libtards, and
Yeah,
I think
the
that's
libtards.
I refer to them as useless idiots. So it just depends on whether it's Gary or me, but they mean the same thing basically.
Thank God there's fewer of them than there are us, and as long as we're winning, and as long as they're over there, let's just keep trucking.
That's right.
Let's keep winning. Let's keep going.
That's right.
You know, and so they're becoming more and more seen as being ridiculous, hateful, vengeful, vile, destructive.
You said something when you were on the show last time. You made a comment about the fact that they're starting to wake up.
Well,
Even they're starting to realize that,
true,
you know, this is ridiculous.
Well,
it's just absolutely ridiculous. And I don't understand it. You and I both know that the underlining phase of this whole thing is economics.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. It's all about they're not going to get paid anymore. There aren't going to be any special interests with Donald Trump. Thank goodness.
Yeah, and these people are seeing and feeling. I mean, they're feeling them losing. You know what I mean? And they're losing, just and their thought process is in a. There's no common sense to it.
None.
It's in
absolutely. That's a great word. My mother used that all the time.
There is none. I mean, how can there be like that woman? Where's their common sense? None, right? Well, they're not capable of it, or they wouldn't be there. Because if you had common sense, you wouldn't be a liberal.
Yeah.
If you had common sense, you wouldn't be a Democrat.
Oh,
would you?
and by the way,
If you had common sense, would you be a Democrat today?
No.
I'm not talking about years ago. I'm talking about right now.
Yeah, the only reason I was a Democrat ever before was I didn't know what to be.
Well, I was the same way.
I was right out of college, you know.
Right.
And like I told you, when I got that first job and I looked at that check and I said, "Who is this FICA guy anyway?" I suddenly realized, hey, you know, I think I might be on the wrong side.
No, I was a registered Democrat until I there again, got a little more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
You don't become conservative till you have something to conserve.
That's right. That's a great statement, Gary.
So,
That'll
a great statement. You look at all these dingbats that are out there on the libtard side. What else are they? I mean, they're involved with a handout, or they're involved with I call it a government job, but really is nothing more than a handout in another term.
I talked about this a while
There's
back,
some
and
good
you and I
ones.
talked about it.
But take the percent.
There are no leaders. They're all followers. They're all just like sheep.
When you see them out there and they come on radio or TV, which we've been able to see a lot of it for the last 2 years, don't you after a while start seeing how stupid they are?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, how little common sense they have, how idiot they are. You just sat right here and read off a perfect example of an idiot.
Yeah.
I mean, what else do you describe something like that?
But what upsets me is that they use the media, the social media, to convey this stuff, and then these other libtards, these other useless idiots, they believe half this stuff.
Well, they're going to, Ray, but here, try to get a little bit on that a little bit this way. Understand that the media is owned by the uniparty.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's it. 100%. They're told what to say. They're told what to talk about and all the rest. Okay, so that's propaganda. Okay. Now, once you understand it is propaganda, then you start saying to yourself, well, why am I listening to them? Why don't I get it straight?
Sure.
And so then that becomes less effective to you in terms of your getting upset by it. You're saying, well, my God, that has nothing to do with the reality.
No.
It has everything to do with hocus pocus. Well, why am I sitting there falling for hocus pocus? Why don't I just stay with reality?
Yeah.
And
Good
then
point.
and
Very
so
good
you
point.
eliminate that. I always use that same thing. I say it every show. Is that why walk a mile to go hear a lie, which is equivalent to going to turn your TV on and go to these
Absolutely.
these outfits that are lying, right? And that's all the alphabet. When you could stand still and hear the truth.
Absolutely.
Just go to Donald Trump and hit his deal, and there it is.
Yeah.
Now, you may not agree with what he said, but the point what he said is the truth. What they told you was a lie. So why go walk a mile to hear a lie when you just sit in your couch?
I love this. We've got all these libtards, these useless idiots out there screaming and yelling. And like Gary said a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump's like an old plow horse. He just keeps going on, letting these people, giving them enough rope, and you know exactly what's going to happen in the end.
In fact, I had a discussion with a friend of mine just a while ago. What's Sessions doing? He hasn't done anything yet. And I'm getting a little bit nervous, not nervous about it, impatient about it.
Yes, I am too.
You got all these criminals out there, all these crooks out there. How come nothing's happening?
Yeah, something should be happening with Hillary
Well, that's
Clinton
right.
and some of these people. I
Except
agree.
for something that maybe we're not seeing,
Well, I'm sure they know what they're doing,
well,
right? You know.
I would think. And so what Trump basically is doing is exactly what you said. He's just leaving them out there. And
Yeah.
what better than they twisting their own rope and hang
Exactly.
themselves, every one by
Exactly.
one by one.
Yeah.
And he just
Exactly.
sits back and waits and let them just twist and twist and let. And I mean, they're getting where they're fighting each other now.
Oh, yeah.
You heard that expression, the sow eating her own pigs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're seeing right
Oh,
now.
yes.
The Democrats are fighting each other. I mean,
Yeah.
that sow's eating her own
Oh,
pig.
I figured that was going to happen.
Well,
You know,
there it is. You got it going on right
They're
now.
slowly disintegrating.
Right.
You know, is what's
Right.
happening with that party.
Ray, I looked at the time here. Listen, we got a great guest.
Talk to me a little bit about this.
I've
trip.
never met the man before, but I've heard about him and was told about him, and he's chairman of the Kings River Conservation District, and the KRW.
So we can talk about water. I love talking about water.
I used to work for the Kings River Water Association.
I remember.
My
You
dad
did,
was
yeah.
he was a director since I could remember.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember him when he wasn't. And at the Laguna Irrigation District down there, I don't remember when
You
he
guys,
wasn't.
it's great having two people on that are
And-
knowledgeable about that. I'm certainly.
Well,
not.
I recall vividly the flood of '69 because I was on that deal.
I remember looking out in '69, and it was scary, even though it was
Well-
only that. But all you saw was water. I remember driving down Highway 99, and on both sides, all you saw was water. You know.
My area of responsibility was the People's Wear, which is 99 Kingsburg, over to Tranquility and into Stratford. You know, all that south or west, and during that time, it was just amazing the amount of what did go on at that time, and as far as levees just about to blow and all the rest, and how they were maybe saved in the last minute. So what I'm getting at is now Frank Zonneveld is his name, and he's going through it right now. He's a dairyman out there. He happens to be on the KRCD and has the responsibility of these levees and so forth. So let's let him talk about it, and we can ask whatever you feel.
I would like that. We're going to take a little break right now.
Right.
And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in say 2 and 2, and we'll meet Mr. Frank Zonneveld, and we'll talk to him,
Right.
and we'll get some knowledge from another standpoint. which I'd like.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what we'll do. So we'll be back here real quick.
At least stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Okay, I'm back, sunglasses and all. You know, we're very privileged here this afternoon at Central Valley Talk because we have Mr. Frank Zonneveld, and he's one of the supervisors at the Kings River Water Association. Is that right, Mr.?
I'm on the board of directors, and I'm the vice chairman there.
Oh, okay. Can you talk to us about flooding? Because we were talking a little bit, I heard you talking to Gary a little bit about flooding. Can you tell us about the current situation here with the water?
Well, after 5 years of drought, where those 5 years are some of the driest 5 years in history on the Kings River, now we have a substantial year again, and they're anticipating this year that we'll have 3.7 million acre feet of water that runs from October to October, and that's including our snowpack and includes all the rain that came through the dam and is in the system right now. Last year, which is one of the worst years on record as far as rainfall amount and snowpack, we only had 360,000 acre feet of water. This year, 3.7.
So that's 10 times as much, huh?
Exactly, and that's almost you hear on the news that hey, there's some flooding going on at some of the trailer parks over there by
Kings River?
Yeah, Kings River there, and up in Minkler, so completely different than last year.
I understand that the rivers, especially the Kings River, well, it's always been to me the most dangerous river at all. And I know there was a thing on the news the other night telling people to stay away from it because of the runoff. It's just the water is moving so rapidly that you don't want to even get near that.
Yeah, I had a friend this morning. I was in a meeting. He said he would chuck a piece of wood, a limb, old dead limb from a tree, and throw it 20, 30 feet upstream, and he says then it'd take 2 seconds
Oh my goodness!
for it to come back by him. So he says that river is really swift.
You know, let me ask you something, Frank. Is there anything that can be done about the flooding right now, or do we just have to live with it? Or
You know, the dam is ran by the Army Corps of Engineers, and whenever they have what they call conservation space, when the Army Corps of Engineers sees that there is not enough space to handle the projected snowpack, because they keep track of how much snow is up there, and that's all going to melt and turn into water, and they look at the time of year. Are there more potential storms to come again? Will they be, you know, in wet precipitation, or will they be in a frozen precipitation? They look at all those factors, and they have to start, you know, allowing for space behind the dam, and they started doing flood release this year, already on the 28th of January, because in anticipation of, you know, more storm events and the potential snow melt toward the end of the season. So they've done that, and during those times of year, there are no farmers that are going to order up water and say, hey, I need water for irrigation. So all that water makes its way down the channel, and then there's a divide down in southern Fresno County, down there on 18th Avenue and Excelsior Avenue, and that's where you have the Army Weir and the Island Weir. And the Island Weir carries water into the North Fork Channel, and then it goes out on the west side in the Fresno Slough, and it makes it to Mendota. And so far this year, 750,000 acre-feet of water has gone out to the Mendota Slough, where it joins up with the San Joaquin River, and then eventually it makes it to the Delta. So all that water has been lost to the ocean.
Gosh, that's it seems like such a waste, huh?
Yeah, and that's twice as much as we had last year to work with.
Yes.
We've let double
Go
that go out to the ocean because we had to do flood release.
Is there any solution that could be other than I guess the only solution would be to possibly build more dams, huh? Or another dam, or even if I don't know if that's a solution. I'm just asking.
What they're encouraging now, and when I say they, I mean the state and Department of Water Resources, they're encouraging a lot of recharge basins where you actually have water.
What that is,
when you have water in a year like this, where you have an abundance and abundance water that you send out to the ocean, if you have facilities where you can hold water, pond water that have you know, the permeability of adding a lot of water, then it's advantageous these types of years to sit there and you know, sink that water into the ground, so you're replenishing the aquifers underground.
Okay.
And that goes along with SGMA, and that's SGMA. That is
what is that?
That's Sustainable Groundwater Management Agency.
Oh, okay.
And of the 28 member units that are on the Kings River, they've all joined together in different management agency areas. And I believe there's 9 or 10 of them in the Kings River water basin.
But I would imagine that even with those, it won't handle all the excess, though, will it?
No, not in a year like this.
Yes.
But in November of 2014, we voted, you know, a public election here in the state of California, Proposition 1, and Proposition 1 says every basin has to have sustainable groundwater management. And you had 2 years to form your management agency.
Have we done that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I belong to the North Fork agency, and there's a Northern Kings and an Eastern Kings and Central, and there's a number of different agencies. And the idea is now, hey, you have to come up with a plan that you're not going to overdraft or, you know, drop the water in your area to points that you're going to set up, and Department of Water Resources are going to see that, you know, the numbers you put out there and your management plan makes sense, and then they're going to hold you to it. So if there's times when we have drought and we have to pump the underground in order to, you know, maintain our crops, irrigate our crops, then that will go down. But if there's opportunities like this year to be able to sink water back into the ground, you know, that's a good thing to manage it.
A good thing.
Consolidated Irrigation District, which is more down in the Kingsburg, Fowler, Selma area, they have a lot of sandy soils down there, and then they have a terrain where it's rolly hills, and then some places are not farmed and never been developed to farm because it's just a lot of sand and it's hard to grow things there. They have ponds, and they utilize those ponds in this year with abundant water, and they are putting water in the ground to the tune of 1,000 acre-feet of water a day. They've already sank.
Goodness, that sounds like a lot.
Of the water that is abundant this year, they've already sunk 125,000 acre-feet of water.
Oh my God!
But they are in cherry conditions there with the sandier soils and
Yes.
and the ground being not perfectly flat, and they have places where they can pond that. Laguna Irrigation, the area where I farm, we actually built the pond also, and it was a sandy area.
Right on your property?
No,
Oh.
next to my property.
Next to your
but
property,
there was an
okay.
individual there. Years ago, the property came up for sale. I passed on it because it was so doggone sandy. I thought I'll never make any money because there'll always be pouring water on the thing, and the crop will just be minimum.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've done now is we approached that farmer and we asked, hey, can we purchase that? And we built a 50-acre pond, and Laguna Irrigation itself has sunk almost 2,000 acre-feet of water there over since.
That sounds like a nice reserve, huh?
Yeah, for a smaller agency.
Yeah.
But if everybody gets on board and we make more of these ponding projects, and
Is that
hopefully we can get that done over the next 15 years, and all that
that'd be
700,000 acre-feet of water that goes out to the ocean, that'll be recharged and put back in the ground, and it'll be pumpable water when it's another drought situation again.
Is that a difficult thing to do, Frank? To get people to do that? I mean,
Well, it takes money, but there's Prop 84 funding through the
can you explain that? Because I'm
Prop
not
84 is money that was available for water quality, water quantity, and it's there to help people fund. If you're a community and you need to have better water, then hey, you can use some of those funds. You have to apply for them. If you want to add water quantity, which is what the Recharge project does, you can apply for those funds also. There's just grant funding from the state.
I see.
There's money that's been put aside to hang on to that water or to create more water, and that's what that's doing.
Well, let me ask you this. I remember a few years back, and I know you do because you're an expert at this, when Mendota had really bad water. Remember, and they had to boil their water. Now, would a situation like that take care of that?
Yeah, it all depends on where the bad water came from. If it's the underground that or if there's some sort of contamination source, then yeah, you can apply for funding as a community like that in order to take care of those kinds of problems. And they have more of that going on now too. They say hey, it's a human right to have water abundance and water quality. So there's communities that they refer to as DAC, D-A-C.
Now, what does that stand for?
Disadvantaged communities.
Okay.
And the California state government recognizes those individuals that are less than $60,000 income annually. And
Okay.
if the majority of the people living in that,
So we're talking about low-income
right,
areas.
and then
okay.
there's SDACs.
Now,
That's
you gotta-
special disadvantaged communities. Those are the ones that are under, I think, $25,000
Okay.
income level.
Now, because I don't know, I'm just saying this. Now, would that be like, say, Huron, a place like
Lanier.
Huron, maybe Tranquility?
Yeah, but yeah, some of those, if you don't have a tax base because you don't have industry in town, or the people, what was that you said? Who was taking money out of your check?
Oh,
FICA. But it's the same thing.
Uh-huh.
You sit there and you have withholdings from your check, and if there are a number of grocery stores in town and they have sales tax and they have a vibrant community, then they have they're not a DAC, right? But when you have
That's very
communities that don't have that kind of income in their community, then they're allowed to go to the state government and sit there and apply for funding and grants. And a lot of times it's better to go in not as one individual yourself. It's better to group yourself. The money that Laguna Irrigation received from Prop 84 was in conjunction with Fresno Irrigation, because they were putting in water meters, and then there was Laguna, and then there was another city, Kerman, I think. So you get a medium city, a small irrigation company, you get a big irrigation company, you get a big city, and you apply for the grant unilaterally, and the DWR, which issues the grant money.
Tell me that again. DWR, what's that?
DWR, Department of Water Resources.
Okay.
That's a government agency, water agency.
That's a federal agency?
No.
State.
State.
Okay.
Up in Sacramento. DWR will sit there and look at your grant and say, hey, here's 5 individuals applying for grant money, and they want $8.4 million, but hey, it's going to affect, hey, this many hundreds of thousands of people, and it's affecting, bigger organizations, smaller organizations, and things like that. So they feel that's a well-rounded application that benefits the most people, the biggest bang for their buck. So in that regard, Laguna Irrigation, I think, received $840,000 of that $8.4 million. We got 10% of it, and with that money, we were able to buy the property, build the levees, put the piping in to
sounds time consuming.
It took 10-12 months almost to build all that.
Yeah.
And see, now Consolidated didn't have those difficulties because they all had natural low spots, and they could sit there and put that in, and they didn't get any government fund or state funding for that. So there's all different kinds of ways to do that.
Does that put a lot of people to work? I would think it would, huh?
Yeah, the people that do the construction, but hey, it's a lot of service industry as far as more government employees who are on the payroll, and every time they add an individual on the payroll up there, they need $160,000 because they need $100,000 worth of wages, and then they need benefits and retirement, and
oh my gosh, coming out of Sacramento, Jerry Brown and his boys,
and they need the CalPERS insurance policy, and so they have to fund that. That's half the time's broke, so it makes the world go around. Sometimes people ask me, hey, doesn't that piss you off? And I say, well, you know what? As long as those people are working, they're going out there and they're going out to eat pizza, which needs cheese, which comes from my cows.
I love it. I love it.
And if if they eat a bag of almonds or pistachios, I grow those too. And you know what? They spend that money, which might some of it be tax money, but it all goes around again and adds to the economy. And
great way to look at it.
Yeah, you got to, otherwise you go nuts.
Yeah, I could see that you would. Well, how do you see things for the future? I mean, I know we've got flooding now, and how do you see things, say, 3-4 years down the road? Do you think that I know it's probably contingent upon what's going to happen with the rain and the snow and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
but
this there's a lot of water politics going on, and during the drought, anyone who had water that was excess, or some people followed their own ground and turned around and sold their water, because when you're short of something, it's just like a black market. You can sit there and sell at a high rate, and people were selling water for $400 or $500 an acre foot. And I was talking with one gentleman the other day.
What does it normally go for? Is that?
I say the one gentleman that I was talking to, he's a developer out of Cupertino, San Jose, but he's down here in Kettleman, peddling water and growing crops. And he said, hey, there's no value to water this year. There's so doggone much of it. It's like, hey, get it out of my backyard. And he says, if water is sold, it might be $20, $40, $50 or something like that, whatever it costs to move it down a channel, or the pump that it takes to lift it out of a channel. So he says the thing, he being a water entrepreneur, he says the best thing is to sit there and, have water availability when water is short. And talking to him, he wants to build some of these ponds also and recharge water, and then he has the right to that water, and when things get tough again, he wants to have the right to sell that on the open market and make money peddling water.
He'll probably make a fortune too, won't he?
There's a couple of individuals that have done that over the last 10-12 years. And the thing is
Does that bother you, Frank, that they do that? Is it or
no? They're entrepreneurs.
Because,
they're
yeah.
businessmen.
Yeah, and I understand.
I mean,
that too.
I've grown cotton, and I always had to get rid of my cottonseed, and they used to charge you to haul it off, and they'd crush it up for cottonseed oil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was a commodity that was a byproduct, and you had to pay to get rid of it. Well, nowadays, dairy farmers feed that doggone stuff because it's high in fiber.
Absolutely.
And it's become a commodity, and it gets, bid on by different farmer groups and farmers because when they want it and it's short, they make money on it.
Yeah.
Almond hulls the same way. You used to sit there and just...
Is it feed now? They use it as feed?
It used to just be, put
Kind
it on
of
your
discarded,
roadway,
huh? Yeah.
put it on your roadways to keep the dust down.
I remember.
And then
that.
nowadays you feed it to your cows, and it's a staple as far as fiber again.
Oh, wow.
And flood water in the water business,
Kind of the same thing. Huh?
exactly. When you had too much water, get it out of my face, send it out to the ocean.
Yeah.
But now everybody's saying, hey, let me have a hold of that flood water, and I'll put it somewhere and in the underground. I'll store it, and I'll sit there and I'll make good with it whenever we get into short water situations again.
This is great. See, I didn't know any of this, and I know a lot of my listeners didn't know it either. So this is great stuff.
Yeah, everything's changed over the last 10, 15 years. And then, the state government is also involved with water quantity and water quality.
Okay.
And we spoke a little bit about the Sigma, that, they want you to preserve your water table. And so that's water quantity. And
What do they do about water quality?
And water quality, you have the State Water Resources Control Board. And that's run by... the State Water Resources Control Board. You have the Regional Water Quality Control Board is the local agency underneath the state board. And they have a petition out on the east side over here, and nitrates in the water. And nitrates can be a natural element, but nitrates is also the byproduct of, fertilizers, chemicals, urea, ammonia sulfate, and things like that. So now they say, hey, there's excessive amounts of nitrate in the water. So these poor people have to drink these high nitrates, and it's up to you as the farmer to help correct this problem. And they say because you use nitrates, and they also pin it back on the dairy farmer. And years ago, I've been 20 years, 25 years working with the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and they said, hey, you have every dairy has a pond where they put their wastewater, and then when you need to irrigate your crops, you pump out of there. And they said, hey, you're a big contributor to the nitrates underground. Well, I had to go out and hire an engineering firm, and I had to dig a bunch of...
I can't even imagine what that must have cost you.
I don't know, it cost me $60,000, $70,000. But I had to dig monitoring wells, and they determined what was up gradient because the water under the ground flows in a direction. And so I had to dig some up gradient wells, and that was to give a standard to what the water in the area was. And then they had to, dig some wells down gradient. And I had to dig one next to my my sump water holding pond. And they said, oh, those leak and they go into the underground. So right next to my pond, I sat there and I had to dig 3 wells, and one was where they hit some purged water and
Hit some what kind of water?
purged.
Now, what is that?
That's water standing on top of a clay layer, and it can't sink all the way down. It's the first encountered water.
Okay.
But that water was coming from my neighbor who was irrigating with barn water. So then they dug another well down to 40 feet, which was supposed to represent the bottom of my pond being about 25, 30 feet deep. They figured that what flowed out of there would be, in that well, and they could measure the amounts of nitrates coming out of my pond. Since I dug that well, they had never taken a sample out of there yet because it's been dry. But their theory was that your pond leaks, and then they dug a 120-foot well, and I take samples of that. That's the first encountered potable water, and that water's cleaner than the up gradient water.
Is that...
Then that they take as the base standard that they start with. And I told the guy from the regional board. I says, hey, there should be dairies all over the place because the water that flows underneath dairies cleans themselves up. No, that's not true. I said, well, the data says it. I says, you guys are all data. I said, can't we go with the data that we collect? No, we can't do that. You guys are polluters.
You know, I sit here and I listen to you, and you're obviously an expert. And it goes back. My dad was just an old farmer, but I remember he was a typical old farmer. It was like, oh my gosh, here come them government men again. Here they come. They're going to disrupt my whole lifestyle. You know.
Well, over there on the east side of the valley, they've picked some citrus growers, probably 24, 25 of them, and they say, hey, you guys are the major contributors to the nitrates, the high levels that we have over there. Mm-hmm. They're in Springville, Porterville, Lindsay area, Cutler, Rossi, and I don't know if it's blackmail or what, but they said, hey, you guys have to provide bottled water for all these individuals. We're going to test everybody's well, and if they have high nitrates, you're going to be on the hook to pay for all the doggone bottled water that we have to send out here. And they've already done it over in the Salinas area, Monterey County. They sat there and they took 16 vegetable farmers, and vegetable farmers, usually have a window when they have to deliver their crop to the processor, and sometimes to speed up the process, they might have to add a little bit more nitrogen to the crop in order to get that to mature so it's on time for the window that they said that they would harvest and bring it to the plant. So they've done that over there, and now without admitting guilt, they've put together a $1 million pack amongst those 16 farmers, and they've said, hey, we'll provide the bottled water until we can sit there and come up with something different. And right now in Sacramento, in the assembly, they have it's called AB 623 or 628, and it's a safe drinking. That's a Safe Drinking Water Act that's been initiated by Representative Nonning, Monning.
Okay.
And they wanna sit there and make a fund that all these communities that have high nitrates or high arsenic, you can dip into that in order to help these communities clean up their water. The only thing is, now they're arguing about, well, who's going to fund that? Is it going to be funded? They want to do a nitrate tax. Anybody who uses fertilizers to grow crops, you're going to pay a tax, and you're going to help fund that. And so some of the farmers said, whoa, wait a minute. Is that all our responsibility? What about the cities? So then somebody else is advocating that, hey, it should be paid by the farmers a certain percentage, and it should be paid by city providers, the municipalities.
That sounds like a fair way. Is that fair to do it
Yeah,
that
but
way,
then
Fred?
somebody else says, you know what, it should be on the general, the general fund budget, because everybody consumes water.
Yeah, that sounds even better.
That's the meeting that I was in this morning. And we were sitting there, talking with some environmental people, advocacy groups, to sit there. They have, some good voice in Sacramento, and
They're pretty powerful, aren't they?
Yeah, and you have to get them on your side in order to, sometimes it's not the best, it's not the best situation or the best solution to the problem, but you think, well, it could get worse, and it could cost you a lot more, and you could go to court over it, and you could sit there and have lawsuits and spend big money on attorneys. And
mess, yeah.
But if you want to be a good steward, like I said, if you sit there and maybe just help fund the program as a farmer, and the cities help fund it, and some money comes out of the general fund, and hey, you can go about your business. I want to farm. I want to provide the food product to the consumer in the least expensive, best quality.
Absolutely.
And as long as I can make money, like I say, if the cheese goes on the pizza and the almonds go in the lunch sack, and then then the economy survives and money goes around.
It's kind of a win-win for everyone.
That's what you got to look at after a while.
Great attitude. I feel so privileged to have you here. sir. I do. And I want to ask you, I hate to put you on the spot, would you come back and talk to us about this? Because this is the kind of thing that the people need to know and that they want to know. And it's very vital. It can, and we'll do it at your convenience, okay? If you'll agree to come
if
back.
there's more information that develops, and it might take a couple of months yet before things change around. Hey, this water gets settled down. The peak inflow is supposed to have been reached, and then the flooding will go down.
Okay.
Today,
when do you anticipate that happening?
well, either today or tomorrow.
Oh,
but
wow.
you have to keep track of the numbers, and right now there's about 22,000 to 23,000 second feet. That's a cubic foot, 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches.
And how much?
That's a square foot. That's 7.48 gallons, and there's 15,000 of those per second.
Oh my!
Coming down the river. So if you do the math,
that is amazing.
But the snow is melting so fast because of the heat that we've had.
Yes.
And if the heat slows down, I hear Tuesday it's supposed to be in the high 90s again. Mm-hmm. And from the snow sensor areas up in the Sierra Nevadas, and they have 11 or 12 of those. Department of Water Resources, KRWA, PG&E, because they have interest there too. Mm-hmm. They go up and measure all that. Well, most of the snow sensor areas are melted. Some of the higher elevations are still intact, but they'll melt slower because it's not as warm up there as it is, down low.
You're talking about probably up around 7,000 to 8,000 feet.
Oh, 11,000, 10,500,
Oh, wow.
11,000
Okay.
feet. Yeah. I had the opportunity to do that a couple of years ago. Just go up there with the helicopter and push the tube in the ground and take the reading of the snow and the water quantity of the snow. And they do that, and that's how they anticipate, what the runoff's going to be. And they think the majority of the water's gone. Well, if that's the case, then the 22,000 second feet of water should start dropping down to 18, 16, 14.
That's significant too, isn't it?
13, yeah, because when you have that, that's what the outflow or the usage is right now.
Yeah.
So if the inflow compared to the outflow is matched, then the dam will not increase in capacity or volume anymore. Right now, today, we're sitting at 999 acre feet of water behind the dam, and the capacity is 1 million. So we're only like 1,000 acres or 2,000 acre foot short of being over the top. So if that settles out and the inflow becomes less, and we start or we keep using the water, then the dam will go down, and then we can sit there and slow down what we have going out the back end still to the ocean. And we get that all, then everything will calm down. The levees won't be breaking. I mean, we've had a number of levee breaks out toward the air base down there in the South Channel. We've got excavators in there today rebuilding that. There was water coming around the island weir. The excavators are going to be in there tomorrow to rebuild that dirt because the water just gets so doggone high, and high water flows dip into all the banks higher, and there's all the old broken limbs off of trees. They start to float, they get in the channel, they plug the weirs, and so you have to, there's a lot more maintenance involved there. And then when it pushes against your structures through the middle of the river, then they become weakened and they're threatened as far as failing. And you have to, it'll be good that it, maybe it'll be done by the first of the month.
Thank goodness we've got people like you. I'm glad of that. I'm really glad of that. And being an old farmer's boy, I'm very partial to you.
Well, you guys mentioned that you can't be a conservative
unless you have something to conserve. That's his saying, and I love that.
And both of you guys were Democrats to start with. I've
Oh,
been
that's
Republican all along because I fed cows every day. I fed cows every day of the year.
I don't want you to think
nobody works as hard as me in the dairy industry except for the emergency room at the hospital.
Absolutely,
we
and
are
I know
there
that.
24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Absolutely.
And when I worked as a 4 and 5 year old kid, having to cut and pull wires and make sure the calves got fed, I had something I wanted to conserve. So I was a conservative. The first time I signed up to vote, I put Republican down.
I'll tell you what, this was back at, like I said, when I got out of college and went to work, I suddenly realized that I think I'm on the wrong side here.
Yeah.
Well, Frank, it looks like we're kind of running out of time. I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah,
and
appreciate
please let Gary know when you can come back, because I'd like to continue this. I really would. I think it's something people need to know. I know I want to know it, and it's vital to all of us. But you've given us some insight here today, and I certainly appreciate that.
Yep,
So,
and there might be more things down the road, and we can talk again. So
I hope so.
Okay.
Just you let him know, because you're welcome back here anytime, and we want to have you back. From my point of view, I want to have you back as soon as we can. So if anything else develops that's vital that we can get out to the people, let him know. And so we're going to go to a little quick break, and I'll come back and close.
And New York to LA, where there's pride.
Okay, I'm back. You see, I still have my sunglasses on, and I just wanted you to know I'm not trying to look cool. Although Gary told me he says I'm cool anyway, so that's fine. I guess I can look cool. And Gary, thank you again. What a great show, and thank
Well,
you
I
for
tell
bringing
you what,
that gentleman.
Frank
What
did
a
an
learned
awesome
gentleman.
job.
Oh my gosh!
And people got an insight they're not going to get anywhere
No.
else. They're not going to get it through the media.
No, they're
not
certainly
going to
not.
get it by people that don't do things.
Yeah.
They're not going to get it from the government.
No.
They're going to get it from people that are actually out there having to work with it.
That's right, and know what they're talking about.
And what you'll notice is how heavy the political thing is, and what people today have to do just because of politics.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the state of California. We're
Yeah.
talking about liberal politics.
Oh my gosh, we have
We're talking
Governor
about
Brown.
libtards.
We have Governor Brown. What do we expect?
And you got people like Frank, with the investment, with the hard work, all over,
Yeah.
having to put up with it.
Yeah.
Now, does Frank want poison in the water? Does he want poison in the crops? Of course not.
Of course he doesn't. Yeah.
But he has to put up with those libtards, and these people get hired at the state.
Oh, I know.
They
I
create
know.
this gigantic, what I call nothing but a welfare system
Yeah.
for a bunch of people that can't get a job in the real world.
Absolutely.
So they work for the government.
Sure.
And then receive all the largest of what the
I'm with
taxpayers
you.
end up
I'm
paying.
with you, my friend.
Frank
I'm
did
with
a
you.
beautiful
Did
job
a great
explaining
job.
that and being
Great
nice
job.
about it in the meantime.
Yeah. Next week, or
Yes, sir.
when you can, we
Yeah.
need you. Okay? You come
And
back.
I'm going to talk to Frank, see if
Okay.
we can't get him back.
Yes, I agree. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like I say every week, I'm very, very strong on this point. We lost a couple more law enforcement officers this past week, and I try to walk up and talk to at least 4 or 5 officers and tell them what a great job I think they done, because they get cursed at and yelled at, and all they get is negativity. So let's start talking to them, please. I beg you to do this. Go up when you see one, he's having lunch or something, interrupt him and just say, "Sir," just stick out your hand and say, "I want you to know I appreciate your efforts." They do a lot for us. We have a wonderful law enforcement agency here and all over the country, and they get a bad rap, okay? So let me say this. Until we meet joyously again next Friday at 3 o'clock, heaven's blessings.
Every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died.